The General of the Center for Credible Leadership and Citizens Awareness, Nwambu Gabriel, joins us for more on the forthcoming Anambra election amid the wave of attacks there. Thank you for joining us on TVC News at 7. It's just about a month to that governorship election, and the federal government is leaving no stone unturned, including, if necessary, declaring a state of emergency in that state. Does the government at the center have the constitutional power to do that?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. The federal government has a constitutional power, including that of the declaration of state of emergency, provided it's in consonance with the provisions of the 1999 Constitution as amended. Because the situation in Anambra State is becoming heated up. The number of killings is increasing by the day, and it seems not to have a dimension. It's still bizarre. People are yet to understand who actually is doing the killing. The IPOP has also declared that they do not have any hands in terms of the killings in the state. And then we are also hearing from a lot of politicians, trading blames from one politician to the other, from one political party to the other. But it is a matter that has to be solved because it is a very malignant problem.
Mr. Gabriel, well, the main reason I brought up the constitutionality of the federal government declaring a state of emergency is because of what we have come to recognize a state of emergency as. It's like a suspension of the democratic process wherever it is declared. And considering that this is a state within the country with its governor and deputy voted by the people, and with the people having the singular power to actually take them out of office, except there's some other judicial matters there. That's the very reason I brought that issue up. Don't you think that a declaration of a state of emergency could in some way actually hamper the democratization process in that state?
No, actually, the declaration of emergency, the state of emergency in any state, does not necessarily require the suspension of a sitting governor or the democratic tools in that state. But however, the governor can still be there, whereas a sole administrator could be, appointed, as it were, for the purposes of ensuring the security of lives and property. Moreover, what we see as it affects Anambra State is state actors, actually. We are looking at the politicians and the manner for which the November 6th governorship elections is going to play out. But all the same, the federal government has a constitutional right to declare a state of emergency in any state, provided there are threats to life, there are the life for which the Constitution have provided in Chapter 4, that the primary purpose of government is to protect lives and property. So once it is in consonance with this, the federal government has the constitutional power to do so.
All right, Mr. Gabriel, when you were speaking, you made mention of sole administrator. That isn't exactly contained in the 1999 Constitution of the country as amended. So how do we justify that imposition, for instance, if it should have to happen? If you can hear me, Mr. Gabriel, I'm asking about the constitutionality of getting a sole administrator, considering that that isn't provided for in the constitution of the country. All right, perhaps we lost connection with the...
If I got you right, you're talking about the sole administrator.
Yes, please.
Okay. Well, the sole administrator here, as it were, has to be inclined to military military control. It must not necessarily mean that the sole administrator has to follow democratic rulings and democratic processes. But the essence actually is to ensure that more lives are not lost, is to ensure that property as it affects the state in question is not put in jeopardy. And moreover, there have been issues, or there have been situations where we have seen declarations of state of emergency in Nigeria, including the suspension of all democratic processes and democratic proceedings in those states. But I think that is not what it ought to be. What it ought to be does not include the suspension of all democratic processes for us.
All right, Mr. Gabriel. Well, that might be necessary, but we also know that the Supreme Court actually gave a judgment declaring that move illegal. Thank you very much, Director General of the Center for Credible Leadership and Citizens Awareness, Nwambu Gabriel. Thank you for joining us on TVC News at 7.
Thanks for having me.